Hey there, folks. I've got a question about group shooting. Let's get into it. You said the gun still groups. I'm confused. The other day when someone wrote that by changing his grip, he tightened his groups, you immediately criticized him for not knowing what accuracy meant. Please explain why you infer that shooting in groups is a good thing, obviously for accuracy, but that tightening one's groups is not knowing what accuracy means. Okay, I don't really agree with the way you paraphrased what I said. I think if you replace the words that I said with different words and then you paraphrase those words, maybe you'd come up with this. But let's talk about group shooting and when I would do that. So I was talking about this gun here, by the way, this old Beretta 92 Brigadier. Got this gun out and I'm like, oh, this gun, it still groups. And it still does. That's nice. Now, what do I mean by that? Why would I say that? I don't believe that group shooting or the practice of group shooting, it's not a very good test for me as a shooter. It's not that relevant. It's not a big deal for practical shooting or action shooting. That's the type of stuff that I'm into. It's more of a check on my equipment to make sure that the gun is doing what it's supposed to do. Group shooting would be more relevant as if I was engaged in a different discipline. But to be perfectly honest, if how good you can shoot groups or group shooting is a super relevant part of the experience for that discipline, it's probably not a discipline I'm really interested in. If that makes sense, I wouldn't care too much about F-class rifle or something. I just wouldn't be interested. I do more practical type of events. So if I pull out an old gun like this, let's check it out mechanically. Is it oiled? Is it functioning? And does it group? Take ammunition, shoot the ammo through it. Does the gun group? Now, even the way I articulate that, does this gun group? I'm not even talking about me. See that? I'm talking about the gun. Is the mechanical function of the gun correct? Is there something catastrophic that's gone wrong with the barrel, in a major way, that I'm just doing a quick function check on the gun effectively to make sure is it cycling? Does it, feed and extract the ammunition? And when I shoot the ammunition out of the gun, does it go into a small group, indicating the gun is still mechanically accurate? Right? So even the way that I'm articulating all that stuff, you can see okay, this is a check on the gun or whatever. Now, the reason I'm saying this, a lot of people, probably not a lot of people watching this channel, but a lot of people for shooting, their experience is they go to the range and put up a target or two or whatever, and then they're going to, stand there or sit there or whatever and spend all the time they want making the rounds go into as small of a group as possible. Now, I don't do that. The action shooters I know don't do that. I would say that's not a super relevant test for us. I don't really care too much about it. Again, I consider that more of a test on the equipment. So the way that I normally do group shooting, like I said, I'm checking the equipment, maybe zeroing a gun. I'm taking me out of the equation as much as possible. So I'll, stand or sit at whatever distance I like, 25 yards, 50 yards. With the rifle, maybe I'll prone out and shoot 100 yards. And I'm trying to take me out of it. So, brace the gun on something if I want, rest the handgun, rest it on a sandbag if you like. Take all the time you need and, fire those rounds, release them as carefully as you can and shoot them into a small group. That's like I said, that's more of a test of the equipment than it is anything I'm doing. Now, the reason that that's not a great test is I don't see it correlate super strongly to people being very, very good at practical shooting. Now, there is a correlation. If you're better at group shooting, you tend to be better at practical shooting. But the correlation isn't as strong as people think. And then the other thing is there's a lot of holes in people's technique that don't necessarily get exposed when you're doing group shooting. So, for example, I can shoot probably a pretty good group like this. I could do this teacup deal, just kind of rest the gun, aim at a spot, roll back on the trigger, and I can release those shots out of the gun and shoot a nice group doing that. But again, that's not really a very relevant test. And there you can see there's some holes in my technique here that you wouldn't even understand just by testing them with group shooting. Now, I recognize the channel's gotten bigger and there's some people who really don't like me making comments I mean, I don't think this guy doesn't seem like he likes me very much. Please explain why you infer that shooting in groups is a good thing, obviously for accuracy, but that tightening groups is not knowing what accuracy means. Yeah, that's if you paraphrase someone else, maybe they said that. What I'm saying is group shooting, that's a check on the equipment. It's not really a check on me. And you won't hear good shooters typically, or guys doing what I'm doing, they're not going to articulate their improvement as, oh, I'm getting better groups. Because like my training's happening on multiple targets, there's dynamic movement, there's a timer happening. It just doesn't make sense to articulate anything I'm doing as like, oh, the group size is this or that, because I'm just not training in that fashion and not testing myself in that way. Again, if you hear me talking about grouping, almost always I'm going to be talking about a check on the equipment, because I don't spend much time group shooting myself to develop myself, because it's not that interesting of a pursuit. It just doesn't help that much for what I'm doing. Anyway, I hope this helps, guys.